his feeling is that when you have a competitor of any kind, you attack them. And that's worked for him up to this point, so he's unlikely to change that habit. I think, though, that is the big risk of Haley continuing to be in the race. I mean, aside from the fact that it delays joint fundraising with the RNC, is that if he continues to attack her, particularly in the terms that he likes to do, it could give suburban women, a voting bloc he needs in the general election, fresh reminders of why they don't like him.
Welcome to The Debriefs, where we talk with the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the headlines they're covering and where the story's going next. I'm Sarah Bedford, and I'm here with executive editor of the magazine, Jim Antle. And Jim, Nikki Haley spoke out this past week in a speech about the state of the race. She said she's not going anywhere ahead of an expected loss in South Carolina. Why is she staying in the race?
Well, one, the money is still coming in, so her campaign donors are still supportive of what she's doing. We'll have to see if that remains to be the case after South Carolina, her home state. She was twice elected governor there. By the time this airs, it's likely that she will have lost the state. Then also, I'm sure she's hearing from a lot of people in her camp who say it's too early to drop out, and that even if former President Donald Trump looks quite likely to be the nominee, that more states and more voters should be heard before the race narrows to just one person. And I suspect she also, with Trump's legal situation, is hoping to put herself in a backup situation where, something very unusual could happen as a result of all of these legal cases. Now, I think that might not be the best strategy, given that she's not accumulating very many delegates, so she won't come to the convention with a big block of support behind her. And two, the longer she stays in, the more she's going to alienate the majority of delegates who are going to be for Trump. But that could be a reason why she's staying in.
Donald Trump is still campaigning against Nikki Haley to a certain extent. He's said some crazy things in recent weeks about her.
Yes.
Is it time for him to sort of pivot to the general election? Are we seeing him do that, or is he still fixating on Nikki Haley?
100% time to pivot to the general election. I think he has at various points tried to do that and has had some success in doing that. But, his feeling is that when you have a competitor of any kind, you attack them. And that's worked for him up to this point, so he's unlikely to change that habit. I think, though, that is the big risk of Haley continuing to be in the race. I mean, aside from the fact that it delays joint fundraising with the RNC, is that if he continues to attack her, particularly in the terms that he likes to do, it could give suburban women, a voting bloc he needs in the general election, fresh reminders of why they don't like him.
Donald Trump this week, I'm not sure that he unveiled a short list, but in a Fox News town hall, he sort of confirmed that some names were on his list when asked about them. When do you think it would be most advantageous for him to announce a running mate? And I probably asked you this question before. I know I've asked others, but what do you think that he needs in a VP at this moment?
Well, I think, one, he needs a VP who is ready to be president. Now, that's true of anybody picking a vice president, but Donald Trump is term limited to a single term since he has already served one term. So he won't be able to run for re-election in 2028. I know some people are speculating that he'll never leave. He's going to have to leave. And so who he picks as his vice president is quite likely to be in a position to succeed him. Also, he is older, so clearly some of the same considerations that Joe Biden has have to be considerations for Trump as well. And Trump does potentially need somebody who can firm up his support with various voting blocs that are kind of wavering on him. So when he picked Mike Pence, obviously he was trying to appeal to evangelicals. I think he has that voting bloc nailed down now after his term in office. So maybe he picks a woman to help with suburban women. Maybe he picks, a black candidate like Senator Tim Scott, who will help him continue to have momentum. 1 in 5 black men voted for Trump in 2020. That's something, inroads I think he'd like to continue to make. Maybe he picks somebody from a key state. Now, he would have to probably move back to New York, which might not be very much to his liking if he were to pick, say, Governor Ron DeSantis, because electors from Florida won't be able to cast electoral votes for both of them otherwise.
Oh, I didn't know that. Interesting.
Yeah, it's a fun fact. So that would be complicated. Of course, Trump would probably want DeSantis to resign as governor and move to a different state himself, being Trump.
Right, why don't you leave?
Why don't you leave? But those are the sorts of considerations I think he'd have. Does this help him somewhere in the Electoral College? Does this help him with some voting bloc? And can this person succeed me after my term in office?
But probably not Nikki Haley at this point.
Not looking like Nikki Haley.
No.
There was a lot of speculation when she got in. That's what she was really running for. Certainly, there doesn't seem to be a lot of love lost between the two of them at this point. No. And of course, that's also a factor in why she's staying in the race. I think she's been angered by some of Trump's attacks, and it's made her reluctant to want to do him any favors.
Well, Jim, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
You can get more writing from Jim and the rest of the political team at WashingtonExaminer.com.